Hey guys, welcome back. It's Missy, and today we're going to be talking about the silent signs of having C-PTSD, because sometimes it's not just blatant out there where it's pretty obvious. There can be some hidden things that you're experiencing that you have no idea can be a part of C-PTSD. But before we get started, if you are new here, welcome. My name is Missy. I'm a life and relationship coach, and on this channel we get to the root of the issues and we learn how to heal and deal. So if that's your thing, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. I would love for you being a part of the fam. And for everyone else that already is a subscriber, you know I appreciate you so much. Let's get into today's video. So this video, I'm not going to go too in depth about C-PTSD and explaining it. If you want more in-depth description or this is new to you, I'd recommend you checking out my playlist, which will be right here. This is more so going to be a quick video going into some of the silent signs you may have. So one of the first signs is that you are sensitive to outside stimulation. You could be sensitive to outside noise, lights, sounds. You could be even sensitive to medications. You could be sensitive to foods. Your body is just very sensitive to any type of extra stimulation. And what happens is you feel like chaos happening inside of you, but you don't show it on the outside. So on the outside you seem very poised and put together, but on the inside it feels very chaotic. When you get stimulated by these noises, you can feel very fatigued, you can feel very depleted. You can feel what I call wired and tired, where you feel buzzing all over your body, but you also feel exhausted at the same time. You may get adrenaline rushes, so you may have this like nervous energy, you know, after it's the same energy like when you feel like you're scared or when you have just went for a run, all that adrenaline runs through your body. You could just be sitting there and it just happens, you get these adrenaline rushes. You could have stomach issues, because when you're overstimulated, your body is trying to deal with the overstimulation. You don't really need your digestive system at that time, so you'll have all these type of stomach issues. You will, like I said, have anxiety. You will have an unexplainable sadness, especially after dealing with the stimulation, and you will have chronic symptoms that others don't see. They all are very much so invisible, and that comes from an overstimulated nervous system. When your nervous system is on high alert, you know, there's normal people and then there's people that are overstimulated. You know, normal people, they're a little overstimulated and it's like whatever, your bucket's already filled, and then when it goes over, it comes out in symptoms. Symptoms are a result of all this stimulation inside your body, because your nervous system is always at a high, and your nervous system being at a high comes from all the trauma that you've dealt with, which goes into the next one, which is you are a chronic worrier. You can be very anxious. You think worst case scenario. You can go from high highs to low lows. Your emotions can feel extreme and all over the place, and sometimes they can feel like they're out of control. These extremes you feel can go from having anxiety all the way to the opposite end, which is depression. When you have anxiety, you're in that fight or flight stage, and then when you go into depression, you're more in that freeze stage. So they're in the same nervous system, but it's opposite spectrum. Or you can even go from high highs of feeling happiness to all of a sudden feeling extreme sadness or extreme anxiety. And this all can happen in a span of a day. And it doesn't mean you're crazy, it just means you're dysregulated, which is something we talk about a lot, is that you can have triggers that dysregulate you and things that you don't even realize are triggering you. It could be people, it could be places, it could be memories. When you have PTSD, you have intrusive thoughts or terrifying memories that will come up over and over, and it just feels like things are unresolved. And it feels like you're going through things to try to resolve it, which is exactly what's going on. Intrusive thoughts and rumination come from your brain being uncomfortable and trying to resolve trauma or things that have not been processed or dealt with. The next sign is you always notice you put on a brave face. You're not a big complainer. A lot of chaos is happening inside, and you internalize a lot of things, but you don't express it on the outside. Sometimes people won't know that you're in a bad mood because you'll put on a face. You don't really take out your emotions on others. You keep it all inside. And then because all of this is, you know, building up inside, when you do have moments alone, that's where you may cry, you may have anger, you may stay in bed for hours and do nothing, and people have no idea because you always seem so put together and happy or good, and it always seems like you have it all. The next sign is that you are hypervigilant. So it's different from sensitive to stimulation. With hypervigilance, you will have a startling reaction to noises and to sounds. You are very jumpy and you are easily triggered by sounds, and even things like people's breathing patterns or people's sighs or stomping and people's walking patterns. You can tell what mood someone is based on the way that they're walking and they're breathing, or the way that they're behaving. And if they don't say anything, you can tell something is off with them. You're very in tune with that. And aside from that, you also will be very jumpy. Maybe like if someone comes around the corner, you will get startled. You will get startled by, maybe people fighting. Fighting can be a big trigger. Other people fighting can be a big trigger for you. It may be that you go back to that inner child where you feel very helpless, or maybe you feel like it's your fault, or you have fear that maybe they'll turn around and blame you and start yelling at you if that's something that you've dealt with. You will immediately feel like you need to resolve it because it makes you so uncomfortable, even though it has nothing to do with you. You will get startled by, maybe someone dropping a box, or just loud noises in general, where other people are just chilling. You are just very jumpy. You always try to read people's moods and try to read their minds. You can sense energy shifts, and when this happens, it will cause you to make a lot of assumptions. You may assume that they're mad at you or you did something wrong. You take it very personally, and you always think it's your fault and that you did something bad and that you're responsible for it. And then you think that you need to fix it. The next is trust issues, which this one's pretty self-explanatory. If you didn't feel like you could trust your parents or felt unsafe in your upbringing, you're gonna have a really hard time trusting anyone, especially when you're brought up in an environment to not trust yourself. It was ingrained in your brain. So you may think that you trust people, and you may tell yourself that you trust people because it's scary to think like, oh, I don't trust anyone, or you may be aware you don't trust anyone. But overall, you don't trust yourself, you don't trust anyone, and then it leads you to trust in the wrong people. Because if we don't trust ourselves and we don't trust anyone else, then we're going to trust what's familiar. And what's familiar is our traumas and the people that have hurt us and abused us. When it comes to people, there's this deep-rooted fear that, and not just fear, an expectation that they will disappoint you, or they will hurt you, or that they will leave you. It's not something that you express out loud, but there's a subconscious belief when you meet someone, even if they're good, you're like, oh, they're gonna leave, or they're gonna hurt me, or they're gonna disappoint me. And to some degree, oftentimes they will disappoint you, because when you have C-PTSD, your expectations can be high because you were let down so much. You're craving for someone to not let you down, and you're used to people letting you down or not being there for you, or hurting you in some sort of way. So it's ingrained this belief that people are just that way. They will always disappoint you, they will always hurt you. And in some regard, people in general, they're always going to disappoint us because we have certain expectations, but it shouldn't be the level that you expected just because you've been let down so much in your childhood, where you shouldn't have been let down that much. Like, you didn't have a stable background to fall on. You didn't have a foundation of trust, and because of that, you're just used to, not having stability and good people around. The next one is you spent your childhood, and you may even notice you do this now as an adult, dreaming about the future, daydreaming, playing out fantasies, thinking about your dreams, even thinking out worst case scenarios and trying to plan out for worst case scenarios, so that way you can always feel prepared. It's a way you can pass the time, because oftentimes when you have C-PTSD, you can feel very disassociated, you can feel not comfortable in reality, and so you will, in childhood, you looked for ways to be able to deal with that reality, and by dealing with that reality is by daydreaming or thinking about the future and thinking about how things can be better, or what a world it would be in if things were much better than it was now. The next thing is you may notice you have attention issues and focusing issues, so it can be really hard to pay attention, or it can be hard to focus. Maybe you're in and out of conversations. Maybe it's really hard for you to complete things. It can be hard when you're trying to learn something to be able to focus on it, and this comes with incredible brain fog, because your brain didn't get to develop the same way the same way where a child who was in a healthy home. Studies have shown that children that have had a lot of cortisol running through their body, and they had to be on high alert and they felt unsafe, their emotional part of their brain, their left prefrontal cortex, was strengthened, and their right prefrontal cortex was less because it was less stimulated and they couldn't use it as often because they didn't have a safe place. When you grow up in an abusive or unsafe environment, you don't feel safe to be able to learn and explore and grow. It's more so, I'm trying to survive, so you're always in survival mode. The next thing is that you numb yourself. So you're trying to numb yourself from the pain, and you can do that through disassociating, you do that through drugs and alcohol, you can do that through sex, relationships, always going out to social events, trying to have a good time. Overall, you have stuff that's going on and it's really hard to process and deal with it. So you're looking for things to make you feel comfortable in the moment. You want instant comfort, and so you'll engage in things like that to suppress what's going on because you don't have healthy coping mechanisms or know how to deal with all of this trauma. The next is the way you love is a deep love, and it's different when you love someone. You love them very deeply, and it's hard to let go, or it's hard when you lose them, and it can often feel like it's a very one-way street, and you don't really expect a lot in return, or you don't think you want a lot in return. You just want to love them because there's this hole and void inside of you where you never really felt loved, and you don't want someone else to feel that way. So you try to give the love that you never received. You often give more than you get, and you expect a lot of yourself, and you're hard on yourself if you don't reach those expectations and how you treat others. So if you do have to let someone down, or maybe someone's disappointed or upset with you, you're really hard on yourself and you have a hard time being able to deal with that. You want to hold on to their love for dear life, or the ability to be able to love them for dear life. You feel a lot more in control when you can love someone rather than expecting someone to love you. The next one, when you learn about attachment styles, you can relate a lot to a lot of the different parts of insecure attachment style, because you'll notice you can have an extreme of being overly anxious, where you will overly think, overly analyze, get insecure, worry about the person leaving you. And you can go from that extreme to another extreme where it's complete avoidance. You shut down, you want to isolate, you numb, you seem kind of cold, you seem like you don't really want them in your life, and you can go from these extremes, and it's hard to determine what your attachment style is because of these two extremes where you can do both of them. And really it comes down to a matter of, you can have fearful avoidant attachment, and also it comes down to when you feel completely unsafe, you are just in survival mode. And so you can go to those two extremes because, and on one end, in that moment of what you're feeling, you feel like you really need that person. But then when you feel like you need that person, it goes to the cycle of, oh God, like, I can't believe I feel I need this person, so I need to get rid of this person because I never had a secure parent or a secure caregiver, and this is very vulnerable and scary, so I need to get rid of them. I'm better on my own. The next is, however you were punished as a kid is how you punish yourself. So if you ever do something wrong, or you're upset with yourself, or you're internalizing a lot of things and being mean to yourself, this is how you will treat yourself. So if when you were a kid and you were punished and you were sent to your room, when you're feeling down, or you're feeling ashamed, or you're feeling negative, you also will isolate and go and try to hide from others. Go to your room. You will try to be by yourself and isolate yourself, and you will shut everyone out. You may be a silent crier. You are someone where you don't want people to know how you're feeling, and it could come from feeling shame about having negative emotions and not feeling like you're allowed to have negative emotions or show anyone your cards or how you're feeling, or being vulnerable. If you were screamed at a lot as a kid, then you may notice that you will say those similar phrases to yourself when you're punishing yourself, and you will scream at yourself. You will notice that you'll say those same phrases you heard as a kid to yourself, and you will scream at yourself. If you were punished through food, like not being allowed to eat dinner, or you had things taken away, you will notice that you will starve yourself, or you won't bathe yourself, or you won't take care of yourself. You will not have that self-care. So you won't allow yourself to have things like a shower, or, you know, get yourself ready, do makeup, or whatever it is, skincare. You'll punish yourself. And the last is, you will have a lot of wants and dreams, but you'll feel like you're not allowed to have them. You're not allowed to go after those things, or it'll make you feel incredibly uncomfortable. And this comes from you feeling like you're not allowed to be selfish. Selfish is a bad thing. You need to think about others. How dare you? You're not worthy of having good things, or good things will always fall apart and good things won't really happen. So that is such an incredibly uncomfortable thought, to go after what you want out of the fear of what could happen, or out of the shame and the feelings of unworthiness that you can't have those things. And that goes from that deep-rooted belief system that your caregivers have ingrained in you over and over again. That's selfish. How dare you think about yourself, or thinking that you are the one that could do those things, not having a belief in yourself. So what do you guys think? Leave it all in the comments below, and please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share with someone that you think may need it. Until next time, thanks for watching. Bye guys. You tripped on the wire? It's okay, it's not scary. Not scary.